listening to the Secure AF podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Secure AF podcast. I'll be your host for the day, Tanner, and I've got here with me Dylan. We are going to be talking about insider threats, which I know you might be thinking, wait a second, didn't you guys just talk about this? Yes, but we had some internal dialogue. There were things I wanted to talk about, didn't get talked about, and then it was just kind of like, well, hey, go do it yourself. So here we are. So in the beginning, a little bit might be redundant, but we're going to go into a lot of fun stuff that wasn't fun for the people involved. Dylan, what is an insider threat?
An insider threat could be a couple of things. It tends to be a malicious employee, maybe someone that's disgruntled because they got fired or not happy with the way things are happening. It could even be supply chain threats. What do you know about your third-party vendors that are providing you with your software and your tools that you need? Contractors. That's another one that we see a lot in insider threats, but it's someone with legitimate access that is abusing it.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line is It's somebody has or oftentimes did have access or at the very least intimate inside knowledge of the systems at play in order to abuse it. So it's not malware, it's not exploits. It can be exploits, typically not. Which we'll talk about at least one where it was an exploit that was inside known about being fixed. He left, attacked it. We'll get into it, but yeah. So different categories then. So employee, right? Mm-hmm. Malicious employee. So somebody North Korea gets hired. That's what I think of as malicious employee. Disgruntled employee is another category, and that's, hey, this guy, got mad at you because you reprimanded him for something and he decided to tear everything down before he left. We've seen that happen a few different times. One of the worst ones that I've seen actually came from a contractor, as you said, and it was they had outsourced to Russian developers, and the Russian developers were like, they had all their API keys and everything like that on a paste bin that was then found through a dark web forum. So there's some kind of like can't quite connect the pieces of the puzzle on the legal side of things, but it appeared that the developers were outsourced unknowingly to the client. So the client hired, fairly local company. Company said, yeah, we'll do that. They're just outsourcing to random developers they're not vetting.
Yeah.
And instead they decided to sell API keys that let attackers into their system.
That's an awesome way for things to happen. It's just not doing your due diligence to make sure that you are hiring people that don't have ill intent, which having intent is a really big thing when it comes to insiders. But yeah, vetting out is very important. You got to make sure you know who's going to be handling your information, and then also how valuable is that information that you're giving out. That's a really big thing whenever it comes to insiders is how valuable is the resources that those people are touching. How much can they do with that? What can they do with it?
Yeah. If you have, $100 million worth of intellectual property and you're just trusting anybody to it, probably need to rethink your plans. We'll go into that a little bit more at the end, talking about some of that. But former employees, I think every company is at one point, maybe not, but I feel like it's very common, had an employee try to log back into something and you're like, what were they trying to do?
Yeah. And that kind of going back to the intent is like, that's a hard thing to prove. Could you prove that they had ill intent? Are they trying to be malicious? And you can't really prove that. So you kind of just have to assume, hey, everyone's got a little bit of ill intent, maybe a little bit of malicious intent.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can't really prosecute on it generally, but at that point you need to be concerned at the very least.
Yeah, and that's why one of the ways you can kind of help mitigate that is just to offboard as quickly as possible. Start turning off accounts, getting rid of passwords, get rid of any access that those people had. Don't let them have it anymore.
Yeah, have a really bulletproof offboarding program for sure. And then insider knowledge from an external attacker. A lot of the times where I see that category is kind of like, for example, who was it? It might be on the list, it might not. There was one breach, I can't recall who it was, but essentially they got hit with somebody who knew the inside. I think it's probably even more common than that. And they ended up doing an investigation, and what they concluded was they bought this information from somebody. So they knew it intimately, even though they weren't an insider. It was still basically an insider threat. So they gained the knowledge for an attacker to use.
And honestly, in this last year, that's something that I've seen quite a bit as well, is they're also offering percentages of payouts on like ransomware for just that little bit of foothold. And, you know, that's an insider threat too, is that little bit of that.
People just trying to sell their passwords basically, or yeah, that's been going on forever where, and then we've even done that as an engagement before, where we had a client that just wanted us to try to bribe employees to see if they'd let us have access. And that was concerning, to say the least. It's also kind of like an ethical gray area to test depending on who you ask, but I think it's important. I think it's a good thing to do. I mean, if you have a person who was willing to sell you out to a horrible hack that's going to cost you millions of dollars for $5,000, like, you probably want to find that out ahead of time.
Yeah, the good information to have who's easy to bribe and who's easy to just kind of walk around and see what they're doing.
What do you think the number one? What's the biggest insider threat you can think of? A lot of people don't think of it as an insider threat, but it was.
My mind always wants to go to disgruntled employees, someone just being unhappy.
I mean, the biggest event.
The
biggest specific one.
Oh,
I would say it's Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
He was an NSA contractor. He had crazy access to systems. He probably shouldn't have had the privilege that he had. No, I'm not going to go into whatever he did was good or bad or anything like that.
Yeah.
Most people who know me probably know where I line up, but the fact of the matter is he had basically unchecked access to a ton of things that he probably shouldn't have had.
Yeah, and he was a contractor too. He wasn't even just an employee.
Yeah, so he had legitimate creds, and he exfilled a massive amount of classified surveillance data. Publicly leaked it. There was no exploiting, no hacking, really anything. It was just grabbing what he had access to and putting it out.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing that comes to mind for me whenever I think of insider threat. I don't know of any that are actually bigger than that.
There's nothing off the top of my head. There are definitely plenty of examples out there. I mean, there was Morrison's in 2014, payroll employee with legitimate HR system access, ended up leaking hundreds of thousands of employee data.
Yeah, HR data. You're going to say HR data come up a lot as we go through these. The next biggest, in my opinion, aside from Snowden, is Chelsea Manning, which is WikiLeaks. It was, again, kind of the same thing. He was an Army intelligence analyst, and he had access to, I don't even know how much data. If you've ever seen WikiLeaks, I mean, there was a lot of data out there in the beginning.
Fun little site to go through.
All from classified networks he had access to, but he could just bulk download everything. Also, another thing that was funny is whenever they did an analysis on that, removable media was totally allowed in that network. So he plugged in external hard drives, and that was how he exfiltrated it.
Just downloaded it and said, that's mine now.
Yeah, and people want to talk about how like DLP will solve these things, and it can definitely help largely. It's a good thing to have.
Yes.
This was also 2010, and DLP wasn't exactly common, so, you know.
But, I mean, there's a lot that we can take just even from those three that we just talked about. I mean, going back to Edward Snowden, you know, that's mainly just a problem of least privilege and just a little bit of behavioral monitoring.
Yeah,
and that catches a lot of that.
For sure. And that was 2012, and behavioral monitoring is kind of like, it was a different world then, for sure. But yeah, the privilege, even just the most basics of it, the privilege would have been the thing is, why does a contractor have access to more than he needs to have access to? that's really what it comes down to is least access is the same you should always have. It's just like Active Directory permissions. A lot of people don't think about it as much as their actual data shares. What data do these people have access to? You would never just let a contractor come into Active Directory and let them have domain administrator. So like, why would you let them just read all of the data on any share?
Yeah, and it's always better to have to give that permission later instead of what happened to them finding out through a breach that they're like, oh, all of our information's gone now.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Another one, a little bit newer after Morrison's, which was a train wreck. Waymo versus Uber, 2017. It was an engineer downloaded 14,000 confidential Waymo files before he left the company and brought them to Uber. So that one was a little bit of corporate espionage going in there from the Uber Waymo. That was a crazy thing. So took the data before he resigned.
Yeah.
There was no controls in place to detect exfiltration, from what I understand. I've read about this. I didn't find anything. The only way that they actually found this out was with litigation. So it wasn't through any kind of tooling, any kind of processes, anything like that. It came up in court, and that was how they ended up finding it. So, yeah.
That's another thing with insider threats too, is it's something that you might never ever catch. I mean, you never.
Oh yeah.
When people are getting away with it, you just don't know, and
yeah.
It's very hard to try to point out malicious activity with someone that actually works in the company, and they're accessing the things that they're allowed to access.
Yeah.
And like
implement your DLP.
Yeah.
It would have solved a lot of these. It's not DLP is kind of like it's your alarm system. You shouldn't ever have it going off ideally.
Yeah.
Where you're if you shouldn't need it, but like it's still good to have. It's kind of like antivirus. If you're doing things correctly, you're not going to have alerts on your EDR because things aren't making it that far. Inevitably, it does happen.
Yeah.
Things still do happen, and I would treat data the exact same way. Fun one, Tesla, 2018. It was manufacturing systems. It was a employee. They modified the production code and exfiltrated proprietary data. They were a retaliation sort of deal. They were upset. So it was more of a sabotage. It wasn't a theft. It wasn't a financial one like most of these that we have seen. It was simply vengeance. The guy was upset. It was considered retaliation.
That's a pretty hard one to try to defend against. I mean, they're almost in a way they could almost be treated like 0 days, because you never know when someone's gonna go off the rails and kind of explode on you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem on that one is one thing I always talk to people in incident response and things like that is, what are the systems that actually matter? And if you ask IT people, they're going to tell you, well, it's our domain controller, it's our Exchange server, it's our our whatever. But if you talk to business people, a lot of the time they tell you very different things. They'll tell you, you talk to a CEO, for example, what do you have to have their function? In Tesla's case, it's going to be production.
Yeah.
The assembly lines, the industrial control systems that are running those things. If you're treating those as a tier 0 asset, probably less likely to have those things happen. So thinking about what is the goal, protect it, make sure it's insulated from people who have it. I'm not sure on that one if he was supposed to have access to that or not. But that was just kind of what came to mind for me whenever I was making this list of these events that have happened. And by the way, I just picked the big name ones. There's so many.
I'm sure you could probably go on for thousands and thousands of pages of all the different insider.
Yahoo, 2018. They were a little more relevant back then, but
not so much now.
Employees with internal account access. They accessed user emails and accounts. It went on for years and years. They were spying upon user emails. because it was very easy for standard users to apparently gain access. So I'm reading. Could be wrong on this one.
Yeah.
But it sounded like it was fairly trivial for standard users to gain access to just really anybody's email.
That's such a weird thing to think about. Just a normal standard user. And
in the logs, whenever they went to go, they didn't find it forever because it just looked like standard administrative access. They said, okay, these tech users are accessing the tech.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why you need a little bit of behavioral analysis. You know, these guys were probably kind of checking some of this like after hours and stuff, and, you know, maybe on their lunch, and like that probably, that'd look a little weird.
At least auditing your internal account access, going, why do these guys have access to everybody's email? Do they need it? Should there be a process that you have to go through in order to access? Like, you know, like a multiple turnkey type of thing is something that I would think of for something that can cause that level of reputational harm. Because, I mean, that's...
definitely need those checks.
Do you want to use an email system that people have access to just read the emails? In my opinion, why do they even have access to them, I guess? I don't know. I've never worked for a large email provider, but... my thoughts is like, just encrypt it end to end and say, sorry, we can't access your email. Like, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, that'd probably be best. I mean, most emails have a lot of personal and private information, so you don't really need other people accessing. And I guess maybe it's a little bit different once you start getting to the corporate level.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, if we really need access to your email, all right, let's just get into your computer itself and like we'll access it from your account or something like that. It might be a pain, but
I don't know. I've never worked for Yahoo, but that one sounds horrible. Capital One, they had a big problem in 2019, and it wasn't even really their fault. This is the one I was talking about where exploiting does happen. So it was actually a former AWS employee. They were an engineer on the networking and firewall side, and they used their knowledge to exploit a misconfigured AWS firewall, and combined with improperly assigned IAM roles, and they were able to access 100 million customer records from Capital One.
That's insane.
Yeah, so it was really exploitation on this particular end, and it's information that could never have come from, well, highly unlikely would have come from somebody that was just a random outside person.
Yeah, they definitely need that little bit of knowledge of what style of bucket or firewall are they running, you know. They kind of have access to those IAM roles and are able to see who has what.
Yeah, and it's the wild thing about it to me is that they weren't even an AWS employee at the time, right? So they didn't use their access. It was just insider knowledge. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That kind of goes back to me talking earlier about the supply chain stuff. You know, this is why you need to audit your third-party vendors and, you know, your contractors and stuff, and people that you do work with that aren't directly related to you. You need to vet them out.
Yeah, that's not very different from an insider situation, really. So, I mean, it's an inside software service vendor, whatever. I mean, it's still something that's trusted inside. You got to treat it the same way.
Yep. Make sure you know what you're using and who you're working with.
A lot more people probably remember this one, but Twitter got hit in 2020. So employees socially engineered into granting internal tool access. So they ended up using the internal admin tools in order to take over a whole bunch of high-profile accounts and run a crypto scam. Does that ring a bell now?
That does ring a bell. I do remember that one for sure. That one, it was all over the place.
They got all kinds of politicians, all kinds of A-list celebrities. Yeah. So their tools. So I think the reason why this one falls under insider threat is it's commonly believed that this was at one point a Twitter employee. I don't know if that's ever been proven or true or whatever. I wish I should have done a little more digging on it, but I think that's kind of the understanding, or at least the prevalent theory on it. I'm trying to be careful with how I say things too. I don't want to make accusations that are false.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of a common conception of it at least. And yeah, so they used their admin tools that they knew existed. They knew where they were. They knew how to use them. They knew how to gain access. They knew how to social engineer. They knew how to do all these things to actually gain access to it.
I wonder if this also could have been an instance of maybe an employee getting bribed.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
Because I mean, I'd consider that social engineering. If they walk in, they're like, "Hey, throw you $20 if you give me access."
It should have made it into my quickly made Cliff Notes, but unfortunately, I didn't add it in my Cliff Notes. I don't recall. But
Is that right?
Another one, Cisco, little company called Cisco.
People may or may not be familiar with it.
Yeah, a former employee with lingering VPN and admin access, as you were talking about, quickly offboard. Make sure your offboarding is working.
Yes.
That's what happened here. So this was, again, mayhem and vengeance. They deleted thousands of virtual machines and caused widespread operational damage. So the offboarding just wasn't done. They didn't follow a process, which I'm sure they have a valid process for it. It wasn't followed properly.
Which, I mean, things happen.
Revoke sessions, change passwords, whatever you got to do, delete account, whatever your process is, do it to make sure it's robust.
Yes.
You even test it, but.
Well, and this is one of those things that also, this probably led to other people having operational damages with Cisco equipment and stuff. Depending on what exactly happened stuff, this could affect other companies. And, that's that third-party vetting as well. Like, you got to understand what everything that's interacting with your network is actually doing.
Yeah. I think it's also, what is offboarding? Mm-hmm. Is it HR or is it security? I think it's both.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be both.
It's both. You can't just look at offboarding as an HR task or administrative sort of thing. It is a security concern. It needs to be brought in as such.
Yes, and honestly, security should probably have a little bit more of a heads up than just, hey, we just now fired this person. We need you to start offboarding them. It's probably like, hey, we're going to go talk to this person today.
Yeah.
So can you kind of start moving in that direction, get things prepped? And once we tell you that they're gone, just pull the trigger, flip the switch.
Yeah. And, a lot of it is, if you're using automation, that's great. Test it. Like, set up a quarterly reminder, yearly, whatever you feel like you need to do. Just make sure you're actually testing your processes. Make a new account that you have the password to, log into everything with it, run through your offboarding process, see if you can still log in anywhere. Basically, pen test yourself. See what you actually have access to. I know that we do that, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, because the worst thing to happen is you go to do that offboarding process, and then all of a sudden it's not working, and now you have to spend a week fixing it. And that's a whole week that person still has access.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
It's too long of time.
So what can we pick up from it? What's our common patterns? Everybody had access at one point, legitimately, right?
Yes.
I won't say all. The vast majority of the issues did not have any exploitation in a traditional sense, and I don't think any of them had any kind of malware.
Nothing that we talked about today definitely didn't have any malware. I'm sure, there's select few special cases where, you might be able to find something, but for the most part, it's going to be someone who had legitimate access and is abusing it. And your access control management is going to be the biggest thing to stop insider threats. You need to know who has access to what sensitive data and how sensitive is that data.
Yeah, right. So HR data, common target, payroll, common target, intellectual property, especially if we start getting into nation state stuff and more corporate espionage. Intellectual property is huge. And then the other thing is administrative systems. If you look at Yahoo, if you look at Twitter, that was just somebody gaining access to an admin console, basically, that they knew how to use and going through it that way.
Yeah, so locking down admin consoles is definitely going to be massive. I mean, you can't be letting people make configurations and stuff, and making sure you know who has access to it is critical.
And I get it. They're giant, huge, overwhelming systems, and administering them is definitely difficult. It's a big undertaking. It's a big task for something like Yahoo or something like Twitter. I get it. I'm kind of surprised this doesn't happen more often, but I mean it does. So, so contractors and former employees that repeatedly show up, it's almost always, hey, this guy got fired, or hey, this guy was a contractor somewhere. Like vet your people.
Yeah.
Vet your contractors. Make sure you offboard properly. We'll go back into that. We'll talk a little more about it. And another common thing is detection, which I kind of feel like, of course, it sounded good when I was writing my notes. Detection is something that's never happening, but it's probably not going to become an event that I'm reading about in the news if detection is happening.
Yes.
So maybe that's kind of a moot point.
Could be, could not be.
Yeah. So yeah, no malware in any of this. No exploit change. No suspicious binaries getting dropped.
Valid credentials.
Yeah, right.
Allowed things.
You're not getting password spray attempts, anything like that.
A lot less artifacts to kind of trace through.
So what will, as like a SOC person, what would you want to see for monitoring? How would you monitor?
Logs aren't going to be the only things that save you. So authorization logs. What you're really looking for is sudden changes in query frequency. So if someone starts looking at a specific data set a lot more common, why are they doing that? And that kind of leads back to, I've been kind of pounding it all podcast so far, but behavioral monitoring.
Mm-hmm. So like, why is this guy who's never accessed HR files suddenly accessing,
or
files?
Kind of that's a lot easier point, but like if you go into HR itself, this lady starts checking this one specific person's profile more and more every day. That starts to become kind of weird because there's nothing going on with that specific person. Some of the smaller things that you kind of need to point out. Data volumes is another thing. We can't, not just signatures. So whenever someone, is downloading 30 terabytes from the HR's database, that looks a little weird.
Yep.
Especially if they're not in HR.
And a lot of people have alerts on their firewall for things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But how many people do we talk to who have alerting on servers, who have alerting internal network side? Because if you're able to come inside, download everything from the share, put it on an external hard drive and leave, what is the alerting on that? Like, you have to make sure that you have alerting in other places.
Yeah, you need to have alerting set up for everything. Whether it's if your EDR has the ability to do some kind of alerting on large data discrepancies, and you definitely need to set that up. If your SIM can look at data transfers in between your own servers and workstations and can analyze that, that's definitely going to be really important.
So you would integrate like a DLP sort of system into the SIM to see data transfer and things like that?
On the internal side, for sure.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Login times?
Yeah, login times are definitely something that can catch insider threats.
Outside as well, though. I mean, it's kind of if you have a dude logging in at 3 a.m. who's never done that before, why is that going on? My mind immediately goes compromised account, but it can also be, hey, this guy's up to no good.
Yeah, because they're trying to also, when they're at work, they don't want someone looking over their shoulder and being like, what are you doing there? And so they'll hide it after hours and stuff and just use like a laptop that's been given to them by work. And, maybe they've got a VPN. And those are definitely things that are that we're looking for.
Yeah. So after you review logs, I guess, what are you going to do? So like, let's say you need a baseline, right?
Yeah.
So I guess kind of tell me if you have any thoughts about, is there a wrong way to collect a baseline? Do you just monitor for a while?
My suggestion when it comes to creating a baseline is set yourself about a 30-day period to do it.
Okay.
I would also suggest trying not to let as few people know as possible that you're also setting the baseline, so that way you can get as natural I just brain farted.
Just standard
Yeah,
workflow.
Yeah, that way people aren't trying, especially because everyone knows, there's probably a little bit of time some people get where they have some free time, not everyone wants to be looked at like, oh, you're getting lazy at this time. So, they might try, if they know what's going on, they might try to make themselves look busier than they normally are. So that's why I suggest, kind of keeping it on the down low. Don't let people know. But yeah, just give yourself a 30-day period to kind of monitor everything, and use those logs to kind of set your baseline.
Okay. One thing is, I would say, anytime you have role changes, so you have somebody who moves departments or something like that, and you have to go into Active Directory and put new permissions on them, review it. Anytime you have to go into an account to make permissions, it's a good time to just look at it. Who is this person? What groups are they supposed to be in? Oh, why are they in that? Maybe they've been there for 20 years. Maybe they've been in a bunch of departments. And maybe they keep getting stuff added to them, and they never get it actually removed and cleaned up.
Yeah, because, if you move from finance to HR, the data that you're looking at and stuff is completely different, and they don't need that same level of access between the two.
Yeah.
So once they change that role, they should, if you move from finance to HR, you should lose all finance access.
Yep.
As long as it's not an access that's needed for HR as well. But yes, it should be very tight. Don't be afraid to triple, quadruple check. Ask someone else to, give you another pair of eyes.
Yeah. Offboarding, you kept talking about offboarding. I mean, it's one of the most important things. I think that a lot of people think disabling accounts, and yes, but also in current day, revoking sessions. If you don't revoke VPN, single sign-on, API tokens, cloud access to every single SaaS portal, I mean, it's quite the undertaking, which is why we have a checklist and why we help all our customers create, checklists whenever we do this sort of exercises. And there's a lot to do, and you have to be robust with it. If you missed any one thing and you have a disgruntled employee who just got fired, like, you're at risk. You're probably you're putting yourself at risk. Just leave it.
Yeah, it's it's probably one of the worst risks you can kind of put yourself in. And that sounds, maybe that's not the correct wording I'm necessarily looking for. But
no, I get what you're saying. And I mean, it's difficult too. I mean, yeah, look at Capital One, look at Cisco.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's if they're not sloppily ran companies.
No,
I mean, they and even they can, slip up on it and really cause some pretty bad damages. I would say, I think one of the toughest things about it is timing.
Yeah.
I know every time that we've had to offboard here, and we've helped our clients offboard people too, which is kind of like not a normal thing that we do, but it's come up before where it's like
occasionally,
where it's a really touchy situation, like a CISO who holds the keys to the entire kingdom, and so that's happened before. But it's a conference call that's happening. I mean, it's messaging their the person who's letting them go on Teams. Okay, this has happened, or okay, we're going into the meeting now, and it's okay, start going through the checklist. You've got 3 people. You're doing this part. You're doing this part. You're doing this part. You've got HR on the line. Like, I mean, that's usually how you need to run a tight ship on offboarding. I think people treat it a little too
loosely,
a little too lackadaisical. Yeah, they're just kind of.
Yeah, they're like, they won't.
We'll put in a ticket to get them offboarded.
Might even just kind of in their own minds be like, they're not technically literate very much. What could they really do? And like, that isn't necessarily a true statement anymore, because you can kind of just pull things off the internet and do things now.
I had a job one time I was at, and I didn't log out of like my email on my phone. I was just like, cool, I quit, whatever. I was getting emails for several weeks, and I kept having to reach out to him and go like, hey guys, just want to make sure you probably want to disable my account. I'm still getting emails and stuff. Eventually I logged out of it. I don't even know.
Could still exist, maybe.
I also still had my laptop, And I asked like, hey, where should I bring this laptop? And they're like, oh, we'll get back to you on that. I ended up just taking it up to security at the location I don't want to say.
Yeah.
And dropping it off and like emailing like it's been dropped off with this person at this time. Like I don't want to be responsible for this thing, but yeah, just I mean that wasn't a small company. Like it was not a great time. So.
Well, and knowing the damage that you can cause, they're
not a person you want to leave logged in. I mean, I guess also that's, I'm probably more ethical than most people, given that this is my career.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a skill set you really want to just leave logged in. So my last thing I would say is probably internal tools or tier 0 assets, like I said before. Just as, your domain controller or whatever, you just treat it like it really is. Make sure if you have any of those internal tools, internal admin consoles or anything like that, or, if you're a software company or something like that, CI/CD pipelines, IAM dashboards, payroll systems, HR systems. If you have customer support that has access to do things like reset passwords and manage accounts, it needs to be treated like support's kind of an entry-level job at a lot of places, but like it needs to be thought of as like this is a critical asset and a critical function that could really damage us if somebody gained access to it.
And I mean, that's because it is. I mean, with the number of people that I've seen this year that the attack happened because they bribed someone on the help desk.
Mm-hmm.
And like those, I mean, they have access to so much of the infrastructure. Like it's crazy. And it's because they need it. There are people that need it. So, and like you can't really hold that accountable.
One place that I worked at, I had to create a ticket, and in the ticket I had to note an email from the customer that was requesting a password change, and then I had to go to another group that could only do it with authorization from a request. So you had to like it was like a 2-step system.
Okay.
Where they would send it to me. I would have to use my email to verify a request, and it would go to them, and they would be allowed to do it through my request. So it was a 2-step system that you had to have to actually reset customers' credentials, because it had access to a lot.
Okay, so it's kind of like like tiers to authentication.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think systems like that can be a pain, and of course you're like, now we're losing productivity, we're losing money. Like, it's just that whole sliding scale of security to ease of use, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, that you gotta be able to weigh how sensitive the data is, because that's why not every system needs to have this level of security, honestly, because it's not as damaging if the information gets out or gets deleted. It's not end all be all. We'll still have production stuff. So like there is levels to it of what do I need, what needs the most security, and what can I kind of leave to the side for now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that about covers everything I had to say. I mean, think about what users need access, lock it down where you can, as few as possible,
Yeah.
If you have anything else?
Privilege. No, I think we kind of covered everything I wanted to say too.
I wish I had a source for this, but if you're only the source is Twitter, sorry, person who tweeted it. If you're only defending against outsider, your biggest threat already has a badge. Pretty good. That's all I got. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us on this episode of the Secure AF podcast. We will catch you guys next time.
The Secure AF podcast is a production of Alias Cybersecurity. Visit us online at aliascybersecurity.com. All rights reserved.